Hi Year 11, this is Miss Gordon and yet another revision video for you as promised. Today I'm going to look specifically at the character of Macbeth for your upcoming assessment. So as you know, we told you that the essay question you're going to get, you're not getting an extract question. Let me just clarify that again for the purpose of this assessment. You are getting an essay question only. So that essay question, it can be really broad because we don't give you an extract. And we have told you to look at the key characters of Macbeth. So for this video today, for this revision video, I'm focusing purely on the character of Macbeth himself. So here is an example question format and what it could actually look like. Write about Macbeth and how he is presented at different points in the play. That's it. That's all you would get. And that question is 25 marks. So it's really, really broad actually. And it can be quite intimidating because it's so broad. And you actually have to think, wow, how am I going to answer this? What am I going to say? How is the character of Macbeth presented at different points in the play? So the first thing I want to show you is the mark scheme. This is what we are given. This is what we will use to mark your essays. And I want to go through it with you because this video is going to be very focused on how to write an essay for the assessment. So if you look at the top here, it says AO1 and AO2 are equally weighted. So that means they're worth equal marks. You have to do one just as well as the other. You also have 5 marks for accuracy in spelling, punctuation, and the use of vocabulary and sentence structures. And there is a separate assessment grade for AO4, which I'm not going to show you today because I just want to focus solely on how to answer the question. So if you look at this, I'm going to start from band 2 here down the bottom, please, and we'll look at that AO1 grid. So AO1 includes your quotations, your references to the play, as well as how you actually respond to the question. And to put this in layman's terms, when it says have some focus on the task, convey ideas with some coherence. Coherence means it makes sense, and sometimes use an appropriate register. This is why we are always telling you how important it is to write an introduction and to use your topic sentences, because immediately if a student is writing an introduction, that it's quite focused on the question, just see the words I'm using here, focus on the question. I mean, that brings you back up to band 3, doesn't it? Straight in from your introduction, your topic sentences as well. Are you talking about the character of Macbeth? And if you're doing that the whole way through your essay, well, then you can go up to the higher bands. You see where it says sustained focus. So that's what it means. If you're sustaining your focus, you're considerably coming back to the question and looking at how the character of Macbeth is presented at different points in the play. Now, obviously, it's not as simple as writing an introduction and topic sentences. It does depend on how well you do those, but, it's a really, really good start. And I really suggest that you focus on that, please. Then let's come over to AO2. So AO2 is it's analysis of how the writer has put it all together. So for Macbeth in particular, the play Macbeth, it's, what are the characters saying? How are they saying it? Who's around when they're saying it? And I really want to show you this on the mark scheme, that beginning to analyze. So, if you're using those analytical verbs, suggest, imply, demonstrates, it's going to help you get into at least that band 3. Okay, beginning to analyze. Then it becomes make thoughtful reference to the meanings and the effects of what the character's saying. And I'm going to show you this through some key quotes now. And then, of course, it becomes evaluative. To get into band 5, you need to evaluate. And that means looking at different interpretations of not just a quotation, but of how a character is presented. So to allow yourself to really evaluate how a character is presented, you need to really look at good points of the play that allow you to do that and don't limit yourself. Okay, so where and how to begin? As I said, it's a really, really broad question. Plan. You have to plan. Now, this doesn't have to be a really extensive plan. we have the time allocated for you that you can actually plan before you start writing. Just kind of jot, what are the three key things you're going to talk about when you're talking about the character. So automatically you're thinking, right, how are they presented in Act 1? How do they interact with other characters? How do they change at the end of the play or at the end of their point in the play? And why? And what is Shakespeare trying to tell us? And that's it. You can bullet point your quotations, because I know when you go into the exam, you're kind of like saying those like quotes all over again. When you durst do it, you are a man. Scorpions in my mind, just get them down, jot them down onto your piece of paper so that you don't have them rattling through your head anymore. As I said earlier, introduction and topic sentences are very, very important for your AO1, because it really defines if your essay is going to be coherent. Do you have that line of argument? Do you know what you're arguing? All good essays will have something that they're trying to convey, that they're trying to argue throughout. Now, you will see all these kind of key words or phrases that I've put on this, and it's something, when I think of Macbeth, these are the words or phrases that come to my mind. Of course, you cannot talk about a character without talking about the themes of the play. And if I'm talking about the character of Macbeth, I could not write an essay without linking it to theme. I would have to speak about his uncontrolled ambition. And for me, that determiner there, that quantifier, his ambition is uncontrolled. It's excessive. I'm not just talking about ambition alone, because to be ambitious is not negative, but to have uncontrolled ambition where you would allow it to cause you to do evil and horrible things, well, that's when it becomes a problem, isn't it? Obviously, the sacrilegious actions of Macbeth, you could talk about that when Duncan's horses, I think the horses eat each other. And it's about like how they describe Duncan's body being found. And there's other points in the play. Sorry, they're not right in my head right now, guys. Obviously, we're talking about morality, Macbeth's sense of morality, because in Act 1 in particular, personally, I found that entire act is Macbeth juggling his own, or battling his own conscience, his own sense of morality. And especially for Lady Macbeth, I'm not going to dwell on her too much, but I feel like she kind of tries to deny her morality, but in the end, her own conscience is her downfall. Looking at physical and moral decay, again, how you become more and more evil, or lacking of morality. We look at the character's fatal flaw, their hamartia. Is it excess ambition? Is it allowing other people to influence you? Things like that. And again, that's tied to influence of others and external forces. So these are all things that you need to look at when you're exploring a character in a play, but especially Macbeth. So the question is, write about the character of Macbeth and how he's presented at different points of the play. They're basically telling you, they're saying you need to track through the play in chronological order, please. Don't jump around from Act 3 to Act 1 to Act 5. That will ensure that your AO1 is going to lack coherency. So one nifty way to track through character. Now, there's lots of ways. This is just one suggestion I'm going to give to you. For the character of Macbeth in particular, and it's how when I write an essay about Macbeth, this is what I do. I look at Macbeth's soliloquies, mostly because I know he has soliloquies in Act 1, Act 3, and Act 5. So, I'm just being quick here. I'm like, okay, I can track through the whole play. The soliloquy, you're commenting on form, because a soliloquy is only in a play. It's when the character believes that they're on stage by themselves and they're revealing their inner thoughts and feelings to the audience for the purpose of us understanding. We need that kind of narrative voice that we're so used to when we're reading a novel. And this is our way of ensuring that we get it in the play. But some things you may not have realised about the play Macbeth. There are actually 7 soliloquies, I believe, in Macbeth, and 6 are by the character of Macbeth himself. Most soliloquies are at the beginning of the play, so that's quite interesting because it's like, oh, why are they all at the beginning of the play? And if you're linking it to what I was saying earlier about Act 1, Macbeth really struggles with his morality and making the right decision. Why does Macbeth not deliver as many towards the end? Is that kind of obvious? He's finished struggling with his morality. He's made up his mind. And then how is the final soliloquy different from his first? Because it would be. To show a character development, it should be different. And some of those differences can be quite nuanced. They may not be really obvious. So you need to look at them. And that's how actually you'll get into band 5, if you really evaluate what is different and what isn't. So let's look at key quotations for Act 1 then. So this is just a couple, again, the ones that come to my mind. One of them isn't even actually said by Macbeth himself, but you might have others. So I'm looking at soliloquies in particular. Macbeth, one of his first, I think it is his very first soliloquy, I think it's in Act 3, after he meets the witches. And they give him his prophecy, and he's saying, "My thought, whose murder yet is but fantastical." I love that quotation because that to me signals that actually Macbeth already had ambitious thoughts before the witches ever came along, and it's just the witches amplifying his pre-existing evil thoughts, giving it more and more volume, more credit. Then, of course, I love this one with all the horse imagery in this soliloquy. "I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent." So again, this idea of a horse leaping over jumps. So this moral struggle with his own conscience. So he really clearly says, he's like, yeah, I've got no reason to do this. He recognizes, I'm just really ambitious. He's kind of saying there, like, yeah, I know I have no spur. I just want to do it for my own good. And then, of course, after that, when he decides, oh, I'm not going to do anything, I'm going to be the good man that I really want to be, in comes his wife. When you durst do it, then you are a man. And, looking at that influence of other characters on Macbeth's morality. So I might write my topic sentence here around how Macbeth is presented at the beginning of the play as a character who struggles with his own sense of morality and his own conscience. And then I can look at, these external influences on Macbeth, so the witches, and of course his wife. So it's really, really important to recognize actually in Act 1, Macbeth is not yet an evil man. Even though I said there, looking at that, my thought, whose murder yet is but fantastical. He already had these murderous thoughts. He's not evil. He's not a good man, but he's not an evil man. And of course, we're showing his violence in the captain's speech at the beginning of the play. But to be violent, was what a man, I'm using my air quotes around man, did in those Shakespearean times. So really, really key point there. In Act 1, Macbeth, he's presented, he's not yet evil, but he's not good either in Act 1. And then I've skipped to Act 3 because I'm just, I don't have the time to do everything in this essay. Macbeth is in basically every scene. So I have to be really selective at the points that I can talk about him because I don't have all the time in the world to write this essay either. So I'm going to look at Macbeth's soliloquy, that one key soliloquy in Act 3 when he decides that he's going to kill Banquo, his friend, and he's kind of revealing to the audience what his reasons are behind the murder of Banquo, because, this is quite a key point in the play. And it's after he's met with the murderers, and he says, "To be thus is nothing." So he's been crowned King of Scotland here. I've said it here. Macbeth's achievement of his ambition results in him feeling insecure and disheartened. He's still ill-content and unsatisfied. He still is not satisfied. He is king. He has made the prophecies come true. but he's still not happy with what he's got. And then this is a great soliloquy for really giving close language analysis, because he really picks his words in this. And there's two kind of lexical fields here I want to look at, these two patterns of language in the soliloquy. So adjectives such as barren, fruitless, and unilineal imply that Macbeth feels jealous of Banquo. So Banquo, he's this epitome of masculinity, because Banquo, he's brave, he's everything Macbeth was. He is his equal, he is his foil. But he has something that Macbeth doesn't. He has a son. And to have a son, you know, you've proven your worth in terms of being fertile and having a legacy to live on after you. And Macbeth feels insecure when he looks at Banquo. He's like, I may be king, but my scepter is barren. You know, I don't have anyone to pass it on to. So while Banquo has been successful in having children, whilst Macbeth has not, and this enrages him. Also, Macbeth's obsession with power is also illustrated in the lexical fields of nouns associated with sovereignty. So he uses these words such as king, jewel, crown, scepter, all indicate that his ambition is not just for himself in the present, but also for the legacy he leaves behind. So if we think back to when he got his first prophecy from the witches in Act 1, they also gave Banquo the prophecy and said that his children would be king. And of course, this is the kind of next thing that Macbeth is turning his mind to. So key point here for Act 3 of Macbeth and how he's different from Act 1. His desire, Macbeth's desire for everlasting power, leads him to becoming tyrannical, as he cannot appreciate what he has. He wants more and sees everything, including his friend Banquo, as an enemy. So he's, you know, gone is the character who battled his conscience and sense of morality in Act 1. And here we are with this person who has really decided, yeah, I'm going to kill him. Because basically he's jealous of him because he is a child. Banquo has a child, whereas Macbeth doesn't. And then we move on to Act 5. And of course, it's, I think, every English teacher ever's favourite soliloquy. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. So that famous soliloquy after Macbeth has learned of the death of his wife. And of course, you know, it's a really easy quotation to remember because it's just tomorrow repeated 3 times. So the repetition suggests Macbeth is world weary and no longer looks forward to his future. You know, he's kind of like, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. What's the point of tomorrow? It's just like another day, one after the other after the other. And he says about his wife, she should have died hereafter, which is a really poignant line in the play because, you know, Macbeth and his wife, they were the team in Act 1, and look at this deterioration of their relationship. That Lady Macbeth dies alone signifies the idea that cold ambition leads to fractured relationships and an inability to empathise with one another. Macbeth has really changed. He's not the character we saw at the beginning of the play. And in that same soliloquy, he says, honour, love, obedience, troops of friends I must not look to have. That's so sad, Macbeth. I must not look to have. The despondent list outlined in his lonely existence, starved of companionship, is evocative of his terrible sacrifice, of the terrible sacrifices he has made in the name of naked, unregulated ambition. So Macbeth, you know, you can look at this final soliloquy as him being really cold and evil and not caring about his wife, but you can also look at it as him just recognising everything he's done, and it's all been for nothing, and he sees that, and it's, you know, you can't help but feel so sad for him as a person. With my dog getting sick in the background. Yeah, not good. Okay, so Macbeth realises that his ambitious pursuit has not been worthwhile and dies knowing he is alone. Therefore, and again, we're always bringing it back to the writer's intentions. Therefore, Shakespeare uses the character of Macbeth as a warning to his audience of the terrible consequences of unchecked and excessive ambition, of how it can destroy a person's moral conscience. So I'm coming back to this idea this kind of running theme that Macbeth as a character, you know, he struggled with his conscience in Act 1. In Act 3, we've seen him seeing everybody, you know, what that's done to him. The decay of his morality has led him to being paranoid and making evil choices, to just being pitiful at the end because he's lost everything. And that's it. That is how I would track through for the character of Macbeth. So I'm going to end up with just, you know, reminding you guys, no matter what character you get, have an idea of how they're presented as you track throughout the play, and write about that. And do not forget to do your language analysis as you go through. Good luck.